I have a couple of stories I want to tell you about how these group chats, they almost ruined my marriage. Chats. Those group chats function like locker rooms. Think of Trump, grab her by the comments, right? That's what they devolve into. But when you get in this very hyper masculine, patriarchal environment, you revert back to the worst version of whatever. And my wife was like, I don't know who you are. You're not this person when you're with me. I want to talk about how powerful male group chats are. I don't know how often people talk about male group chats, but I mean, like, as a man and that has a family, and I spend the vast majority of the time with my family, group chats are a way for you to stay connected to people that you just don't really have the time to be connected to, right? And with the advent of social media, you can share thoughts and share information. And sometimes you can have really in-depth conversations about things that you wouldn't be able to do with each individual person, because, it just takes so much of your day, it takes so much of your time. So in one hand, group chats are good, right? Like, they can be really good and really productive. But on the other hand, the underbelly of the group chats, especially when they are men, like male dominated, or when there's only men in the group chats, those group chats function like locker rooms. Think of Trump, grab her by the pussy comments, right? That's what they devolve into. I've been in so many male group chats. I would say that out of all of them, I've only been in one that was consistently healthy, like from beginning till end, and that's the one that I'm currently still in with. Like my cousin is in there, and pretty much like my closest male friends, like they're in there, right? But I was in several group chats with men. Most of them I grew up with. It was like old school friends, elementary, junior high school. We we saw each other be dirt poor, and we came up and we got families now and we're successful, and so you would think the group chat would be about that, right? It would center around how we made it and how we survived and how we're thriving now, but they really were anything but that. I would say that every male group chat that I was in, the biggest problem was the lack of communication, or the lack of ability to communicate, right? That was the number one thing that I noticed in all the group chats that I've been in with men, aside from the one that I'm in now, is how men don't know how to communicate. And there are most men fit this archetype of man where, especially when they get around other men, they go out of their way to be very disrespectful, very dismissive. They can never admit their faults. You know what I'm saying? They're always trying to challenge each other. It's a breeding ground for toxic behavior, for behaviors that you would think as a grown man, or not, I wouldn't say that you would think, but that as a grown man, you have grown out of, right? And you only practice them in these group chats. You don't, when you're one-to-one with any individual man in that group chat, you don't talk the same. When you're at home with your family, you don't talk the same. When you're talking to your kids, you don't talk the same. When you're talking to your coworkers, you don't talk the same. But when you get in this very hyper masculine, patriarchal environment, you revert back to the worst version of yourself, which to me is proof that masculinity is very toxic. Like masculinity in and of itself is toxic, right? Just the whole thing. You guys know I say that all the time, but it really is. And this is just another example of that. But I was in several group chats that I removed myself from within the last, I would say, anywhere between 3 to 5 years. I just I just took myself out the group chat completely. And I really haven't joined one since. I'm not like I haven't joined like a new group chat since then. Not ones with men. Not ones with men. I'm saying like I want to keep preface all this by saying everything that I'm talking about are group chats that were either all men or like I was in one that was like 13 men and one woman, and she ended up leaving. So it ended up being all men. And I have a couple of stories I want to tell you about how these group chats, they almost ruined my marriage. They truly did. So, one of the ways that it did this, like I said, it was all the work that I've done on trying to become a better communicator and whatnot has got me to a place where I feel like me and my wife can communicate with each other exponentially better than we have been able to do in the past. And we still have our fights. And, how people say, y'all argue like an old married couple. Like we argue like an old married couple. You know what I'm saying? Like we don't like necessarily like yell and get all belligerent with each other, but we just like always picking at each other and challenging each other. And, it is what it is. Right. But our communication is better now than it has been in pretty much any of the years past, right? But when I was in these group chats, I feel like a lot of the work that I had done or I was trying to do at that time was being undone by how I was communicating with these men and how often I was communicating with these men. Because you guys know, you could get into a group chat and just start responding back and forth with a person, and you could be on that mug for hours, right? Just not like constantly back and forth, but just just like a few messages an hour, a few messages every 15 minutes, 20 minutes, or whatever. You reading through now you got to go back and read and catch up, and whatever. But whenever there was a disagreement, it would just devolve into like a pissing match between men and challenging each other and calling each other dumb and a bunch of ad hominems, and like like that was how you communicated. Like, and I would say it in the group chat. I remember when I first got in one of the group chats, because I hadn't been in one, like I hadn't talked to these dudes in years, 20 years, right? We get into this group chat, and I remember within like a day, I was like, wow, you guys talk exactly how we used to talk when we were in high school. And I should have known, I should have left then, but I didn't. Like I was laughing at it at the time. I was like, damn, y'all have like not grown up at all. And then fast forward, I was in the chat for like 2 years or whatever it was. And I started to communicate like them. They never started to communicate like me. I started to communicate like them. And it was like all this work I had done, and you know what I mean, all these steps I had taken, it just like blew up like in a matter of like months. I feel like it was crazy. And I feel like it definitely made it harder for me to communicate with my wife at that time, because it's hard to compartmentalize that. You know what I'm saying? Mind you, I'm not even talking to these dudes. These are messages. These are maybe voice notes sometimes, but it would just be a bunch of like I said, just like vicious attacks on your character. You know what I'm saying? Like a bunch of gaslighting, things of that nature. And it was crazy because they would be wrong. Like I'm sorry. Like I'm just being honest. Like they would be wrong a lot of time. Like the majority of the time when we would have discussions, they would just be wrong. Like they didn't know what they were talking about. We'd be talking about politics. They wouldn't know shit about politics, but they would be like calling me dumb. And I'm like, bro, like I have like a strong passion for politics. You know what I mean? Like you guys don't know shit about politics. Like you know nothing. You don't know how any political system works. You don't know any fucking thing. And they would be like just berating me and like being just utterly disrespectful. And then I started to be disrespectful back because that's how I was. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I would push back, like, nah, fuck that. Da, 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 da. You ain't about to be talking to me, da, da, da. Whatever, right? So we end up being disrespectful to one another. Why stoop to their level, right? But I did. And I feel like there's a time and a place, because I'm definitely not Michelle Obama. If they go low, I can go lower easily. But at that time, like I just wasn't on that, right? So I would say that was one way that it was negatively impacting my relationship with my wife. And she didn't know that. Like she did at that time, she didn't know that's where a lot of it was coming from. Right. She figured it out later, but at that time she didn't. And then another thing was that I was in a group chat and they would be in there. It was like, let's say it was like 6 of us that were communicating with each other consistently. Of the 6, one of them was like outright single, one of them was married, and then me. And then there was 3 dudes in there that were, one was married, 2 were in committed relationships. Three of the men out of the 6 that were communicating regularly were old, like just outright cheating on their women, like proudly, all of them bragging about it. And that was when I really started to see that, like, damn, dudes don't really be cheating like for themselves. Like they really be cheating just, you know what I'm saying, just to brag about it. Because like it's one thing to cheat, that's bad enough. It's a whole other thing to get in a group chat full of your, you know, your friends, your closest male friends, and like not me, like I wasn't the close male friend, but some, you know, some of the dudes in there were actually like close to each other. And just like be like, yeah, you know, oh, check this out. And be like one dude was like doing basically like revenge porn type shit, like posting pictures of women that he was sleeping with, and like, you know what I'm saying? Just like them, like, you know, he just got done having sex with them, and then he would be recording them and be talking to them. And, you know, most of the time they knew, you know what I'm saying? But sometimes they didn't. But just disgusting shit. And like, I went from being utterly repulsed by that stuff, because I would never do that. That was never something, you know, I always thought that was weird to record women, you know, without their knowledge, to like, it was like, it became like normalized to me in my brain. And I remember like early on, they would record women and I would be like, oh, like, damn, y'all are weird. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I would tell them that, like, I'm trying to tell y'all how crazy this shit was. I was actually clocking this shit in real time. Like it wasn't like I didn't know and then I can't, like I literally I was like, that's weird. Like why are you recording these girls? Why are you posting these women? Da 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 da. And they would just be like instant attacks. Like, oh, you gay. Oh, dude, you trans, huh? You a transformer. Like, mind you, these are dudes that I've known my whole life since I was a child. And I like that's what they would say. And I'll be like, no, you know, and it worked. It did work. Like I can't even lie. It worked. Like that shit really did get to me at that time, because I hadn't started to unpack my misogyny at all at that point. So, you know, I was still very much like a victim of the patriarchy and a participant, right? I didn't know. And they would do that and I'd be like, no, I ain't gay. You know what I'm saying? Like, mind you, I wasn't, it was weird because it wasn't like I would consciously allow that to affect me, but subconsciously it definitely did, because I started to like not care about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, like I was just like, oh, that's weird, you know, whatever. And then it was like a progression. And then like, but one thing, okay, and then another thing that they did was when they were cheating, I would tell them, like, I remember like one day I had like a real like heart to heart with them. And I was like, why are you guys cheating? Like, what do you get out of that? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, I'm been in my marriage for a while now at this point. And I was just like, yeah, like I grew out of that. I grew out of that, like needing to like be validated by sleeping with a bunch of women. And this is what I'm telling them this. Like, I was like, yeah, I did that before when I was younger. And, you know, it just I don't know. Like, it's not worth it. It's too much energy. It's wrong. You're like harming your family. You're harming your wife. Like, you know, common sense shit, right? Like, duh, right? Like, you know what it is. Why not to cheat? And they were like, oh, you gay. Like instantly, oh, you're gay. Oh, you're gay. Oh, you're trans. Like the same shit. And I was like, what the fuck? And I was like, no, I'm not. Like, I just, you know, think that it's not okay to cheat on your spouse. Like, what the fuck? And I told the story before, but like they call me like sad wee crip. like they would call, like literally, like it was like a hashtag in the comments. Like when I would say stuff that they disagree with, they'd be like, oh, that's sad wee crip. Oh, you just a sad wee crip. And the reason why they called me sad wee was because this is what my friend said at the time. He said, your wee has to be sad because you're only sleeping with one woman. And I was like, no, I love sleeping with my wife. Like, it's super fun. I fucking love it. I get excited every single time. Like, what? Like, I did, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, no, like, that shit is awesome. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And they was like, nah, you can't like projecting all of that shit on me, like, because they can't be satisfied with one woman or whatever the case may be. And they don't have any respect for their woman or whatever. They were trying to act like I secretly did, you know what I'm saying? I'm like, but I mean, if that was the case, I would be a cheater too. What's stopping me from cheating? You know what I'm saying? If my wee is so sad, why wouldn't I just cheat? Like, it ain't like I can't cheat. It ain't like I don't have the option of cheating. I'm not cheating because I don't want to cheat. Like, simple as that. I don't want to cheat. I think it's terrible. I don't want to do it. I've done it before. It was fucking abysmal. I learned my lesson. I'm not going to do that to my wife. Period. Like, that's what it is. Like, that was the conversation we were having. And I was talking to them about going to therapy. And I was like, dude, have you guys ever thought about going to therapy? And out of the three, one of them seemed receptive. One of them like hit me on the back end and was like, nah, bro, like, I was really listening to what you were saying. He didn't say none of that shit in the group chat. He did not let on in the group chat that he was feeling what I was saying at all. But on the back end, when we talked, like I said, when I was talking to him one-to-one, he was like, nah, like, I really be thinking about it sometimes. Like, and I was like, cool, you know what I'm saying? So I was like glad that I said something, you know what I mean? But nonetheless, like, I just really realized like how toxic that environment is for a man that like isn't actively participating in that lifestyle, like being a cheater, being abusive to their friends, like that doesn't, you know what I mean? Like I genuinely just wanted to like have this like camaraderie with my homies or whatever, right? Like we were bonding over, you know, fantasy football, which I play, but I don't even watch sports. Like, I watch like probably 20 minutes of sports a week. You know what I'm saying? Like I'll have the game on in the background, but I'll be like sitting next to my baby. I'm on my phone and we're just like, you know, it's just there and I'm looking, I'm like, oh, that's crazy. And then I'm back on my phone. I'm talking to my kid. He said, like, that's it. That's all you got, right? Like I don't sit up and watch sports all day like I used to. They do, right? But I just wanted to like have that, you know, that bonding time with some, you know, with some men, with some male friend. It's not worth it, y'all. It's not worth it. Male group chats are toxic. They are. Like you can find you a good one, but I'm telling y'all, out of the whatever ones I was in, only one is healthy. So after all of that stuff happened, right? My wife, one day, she goes through my messages for whatever reason. I don't know. You got to ask her why. Don't care why. She went through my shit and she was like disgusted by the conversations that was being had, you know, the posts that were being shared, all of that stuff, right? And I participated in some of that stuff, no doubt about it. Obviously the most egregious shit I didn't do, like I didn't cheat, not, you know, that it wasn't that, but it was even just like the things that I was saying in there, the language I was using, you know, whatever. And my wife was like, I don't know who you are. You're not this person when you're with me. This is not who you are. And I was like, you're right. I'm not that person. Like I wasn't being fake with my wife. I was being fake with the men. I was putting on an act. I was performing masculinity. Right? Which I grew up doing. You know what I'm saying? Like it's natural for me to do it. It's like second nature to do it. But the thing about masculinity is, to me, masculinity is at best like early 20, like, you know, adolescence to early 20s. Like that's the only time I could wrap my brain around performing masculinity. Outside of that, like once I had children, that shit is goofy. You know what I mean? Like, and I knew this is 10 years later. This is 8 years, you know, whatever it was after I had kids at the time. You know what I'm saying? I'm late 30s, early, you know, damn near 40 years old, whatever. It was odd. Like looking back on it, it was very strange. But my wife called me out. She called me out, and she you know, I had to pull myself out of that shit. So eventually, what happened was She called me out, and I was like, nah. Like at the time, like I'm sorry, I lied. When she had the first conversation with me, I was like, I was pushing back, like, nah, it ain't that serious, and da 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 da. And then some of the stuff I had to like answer for, like, okay, that was bad, but it ain't that bad. And she was just like, I don't know what the fuck is going on, like, and I just really didn't know how bad it was. But she was really, this is stuff that I learned like over time. Like she was thinking about like divorce and stuff like that from the stuff she was seeing in there. You know what I'm saying? Just like I was even having these, like I was keeping these dudes as friends, like it was, and I totally understand like now, but at the time I had, my brain had got warped again. Like I allowed myself to be manipulated. And I ended up eventually I ended up leaving both group chats around the same time. They didn't serve me. They never did. I don't feel bad for it. And what's funny? Pretty much all the dudes that I was in the group chat with, like we're all individually, we still are like friends. You know what I'm saying? Like for the most part, I don't really communicate with none of them that often, but for the most part, we're still like friends and stuff like that. I don't hate them. I'm not like trying to destroy their lives or whatever. You guys can say whatever. I know it's like the whole like, oh, they was cheaters. Yeah, they cheated. I don't hang around them. Literally, I only have a relationship with them for the most part online. Like a couple of them I see or have, I shouldn't say I see, I've seen in person once out of, in the last 20 years, but I don't have a relationship with them outside of in those spaces, like on the social media spaces in those group chats for the most part. Like I'm not in the fantasy league anymore. I don't, you know what I mean? Like I'm not around it, but like, from time to time they'll send me a message, I'll send them a message or whatever, but that's about it. Right. But that group chat, those group chats literally almost destroyed my marriage. Right. And I'm taking full accountability for what I did. So don't get it twisted. I'm not acting like they did it, but I'm saying me being in there, the pull is so powerful. The pull is so powerful. And here's the craziest thing. Not the craziest thing, but here's something else that I want to touch on too. Is that like now I can never be in those spaces. Like now where I'm at now mentally, like I can't be in those spaces. It's boring. It's not worth it. Right. But those group chats operate as fraternities. They're like it's a good old boys. You know what I'm saying? And one thing I know about fraternities, like the police, like the military, you don't change the system changes you. Right? So you got three options. Let the system change you, or conform, fight back, right? But it ain't gonna never change, or quit. And I quit. I choose to preserve and conserve my energy for my family. Right? This is me fighting against the system. I fight against the system every day on my platform, right? And a huge reason why I'm in this space now is because of those experiences. Like those experiences, they happen like within like a year or two before I really started to like unpack my massage, before I really got on this path. And they really have propelled me. They were like canon events. They really, really were. So to any man, if you are in a group chat with your friends right now, I want you to examine it and see if it's serving you and how it's serving you. You need to take stock of it. You need to see if it's influencing you negatively. You need to see if it's impacting you negatively. You need to do that also with your friendships, with the men you communicate with online, whatever it is. Men need to really be careful with that, because that the patriarchy is a drug. It functions like a drug, right? I am always in recovery. I'm always in recovery. And that was proof. That's proof. Like I can't, like when you're like, if you were a drug addict, like if you were strung out on heroin, you're not supposed to do any drugs after that. You're not supposed to smoke weed. You're not supposed to drink alcohol, like, because any of that could trigger something else and you could be right back on heroin. So you're supposed to be, straight edge, sober as fuck, moving forward, right? That's how the patriarchy functions. Like I don't need to be around that shit at all. Like I just can't function in those spaces. Even with all the work I've done and all of that stuff, all of my beliefs would be challenged every single day in those spaces. And it's just such a slippery slope. So if you're a man and you are on this journey with me and you're trying to grow and all of that stuff, you need to really examine the relationships you have with the men in your life. But group chats specifically. And if you're not, hey, group chats, I'll add other things to it too. Because I didn't do this, but I don't want to just put a box over, just lock it all into group chats. But group chats are dangerous. Also, teams. You hoop, you play basketball, be careful. Yep. Team, whatever you're doing. Anytime you are around a bunch of men consistently, workspaces even, but that's harder to do. But definitely like extracurricular activities that you do with a lot of men, listen to the language. What are they talking about? How are they talking about women? How are they, you know what I'm saying? Like, what is going on? Really, really examine that. And you don't got to try to change them. You can just remove yourself from the space. You could. You could talk to them. You could have the conversation. You can call them out. But if you're the only lone voice in there calling somebody out, trust me, it ain't gonna work. So I don't have any problem with you removing yourself. Save your fucking self.